and welcome to Overtime Hockey Talk. My name is Mark Paul, my AI co-host, ChatGPT, and no, I'm just kidding. It's Justin Baker, everybody. Welcome to the show, Justin Baker.
You could probably have ChatGPT talk about the same crap that I do all the time.
Yeah, that's true.
And do just as good of a job.
Yeah, you're 95% as good as ChatGPT, so that's why we keep
95.
You around. As long as you keep that. No, I'm just kidding. You're infinity better than ChatGPT. ChatGPT can't. It doesn't even know what you know. It doesn't have an opinion, right? At least not yet.
Not yet, yeah.
Not yet. Sure, soon it will start developing a personality. I did see something that for radio shows, like for like a DJ on the radio, that they basically are to the point where they could have a whole entire show be run by an AI voice, and you would not even know. Dude,
I'm sure you could literally, like, as a programmer, just go in, select the tunes you want to play over the next 3 hours.
No, you don't even have to do that. You just tell it, like, hey, what's here's the list of the top whatever songs, and make me a playlist.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. But what I'm saying is, like, sometimes you like to throw in some odd songs or whatever, right? So you could create your playlist that would take you, 20 minutes, right? You just select a top 100 hits, and then you throw in a couple wild cards, whatever.
Yeah, there you go.
And,
okay.
Yeah, and then you just go, okay, AI, just go ahead and chat.
There we go.
For 5 minutes every 30 minutes, whatever.
Yeah, every sixth song or however. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, fun times. Well, until then, we're just going to keep on talking because we're, human beings. Soon we'll be replaced by something else. But until then, we'll keep on doing our show. Is that cool with you, Justin?
It is very cool with me.
That?
But
okay.
I'm okay with being replaced as long as we get somebody in here with an Australian accent from AI.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm sure that can be arranged. We do actually have a decent little following out there in Australia, to be honest.
I love it.
Maybe we can just get one of them to at least give us like 30 seconds of audio, and then we can just drop it into an AI thing, and it'll probably be able to say anything we want it to say. It'll be wonderful. On today's show, now that we've covered that, on today's show, we are going to talk both conferences' playoff races as they are heating up towards the end here with 4 or 5 games left to go for most of these teams. We'll talk the East and the West. We'll also talk our top 5 most likely coaches to be fired, I guess, before next season. And then we want to give a little bit of time to a potential change to overtime that was discussed at the GM meetings a couple weeks ago. We never hit on it in the show yet, so we're going to talk that, and then we are also going to talk about a little Connor McDavid there at the end of the show. So we're going to start with 5 minutes at each conference. Justin, it's your choice, West or East, to start the show. Let's
go West.
Okay, the Western Conference is basically between 3 teams, right? Like we're Nashville, Calgary, and Winnipeg is stubbornly hanging on to that second wildcard spot, 89 points. Calgary, 2 points back with Winnipeg has a game in hand. So Winnipeg's played 77, Calgary at 78. And then Nashville at 86 points, they have also played 77 games. How do you see this thing shaking out? What's anything surprising you at this point?
Yeah, it's surprising to me that Winnipeg has held on. They seem to be just grasping at straws these last 2 weeks here. I figure the way they've been playing as of late, they've been basically playing 500 hockey for the last 20-ish games, whatever you want to call it. Man, I'm surprised nobody has seized the opportunity between Calgary and Nashville. I mean, Nashville, actually, they were a little bit further down in the standings a few weeks ago, and they managed to get back up a little bit. But similar to Winnipeg, they've gone 500 in their last 10, and Calgary just barely above 500 at 6-3-1. So, man, it seems
and
like
Calgary,
nobody.
Holy smokes! I mean, yes, Calgary 6-3-1, but when you look at some of their past games, having to come like big comeback wins or blowing big leads, and have it like they've just been such a tumultuous team this year. They would be fun come playoff time. Like I do think out of these 3 teams, the team with the most talent is probably Calgary. We thought that Calgary would be pretty good. We didn't think Calgary would be in this position fighting for a playoff spot. I figured they'd be a little higher up, or at least they're comfortably in a playoff spot. So, I mean, they're not horribly far off from that, but They definitely have, not met expectations this season. And shoot, you got 4 games left to go. Even if they win all of them, that's 95 points. I would say that they have to win every single game from here on out. Even 1 point missed down to 95 might not even be good enough. It probably won't be, because with Winnipeg with 5 games left to go, do I see them getting 6 points? Yeah, I do. I see them getting 6 out of those 10 points. And they've got the tiebreaker. By far, they've got the tiebreaker, because they've got 42 regulation overtime wins as opposed to Calgary's 34 and Nashville's 34. So I got to say that Winnipeg, in my mind, out of 10 points, to get 6 of those, that's not going to be that difficult.
And I'll tell you what, you look at their schedule. Winnipeg is home against Calgary tonight, home against Nashville on Saturday. So talk about a couple big-time games coming up for Winnipeg and both these clubs. I mean, all 3 of these clubs.
Yeah, this is a must-win in regulation game for the Calgary Flames.
Yes,
if they're going to have any chance.
Yeah, and especially with Winnipeg being at home, you got to think Winnipeg's going to probably put both of these. If they can put a win on both of these games, I think they're in at that point. No questions asked, because they've got San Jose at home after that. That should be an easy win. But then they've got to go to Minnesota and Colorado to finish out the year, which I think both these teams are going to be going strong. So to me, those are probably in the L column right now. So
yeah, I'm certainly leaning on Winnipeg. But hey, Calgary goes into Winnipeg tonight. I mean, and by the time you're listening to the show, you'll know the outcome of that game. That would tie them for points with a game in hand for Winnipeg. And Calgary's just going to have to win out. But
Calgary's got Nashville next week too. So
yep. You got to hold them off too, right?
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of big games for Calgary. I just don't know. I think I'm leaning towards Winnipeg, because I think ultimately they've got the regulation overtime win column. That's locked up. So all they have to do is tie. On top of that, they have the best goaltending out of these 3 teams. And a lot of times that is what it's going to come down to here in the final few games. And with 5 games left to go, and, in terms of the back-to-backs that Hellebuyck won't be playing, I mean, he's not playing in that game against San Jose on the 10th.
Yep, I agree. I think that's the only one.
That's probably it. So he's going to play against Calgary. He's going to play Nashville, Minnesota, or maybe he plays against San Jose, kind of guarantee you the win, and then you get that Minnesota game. That may be what they do too.
I guess it depends on how you do against Calgary and Nashville, right? So if they lose one of those, then they maybe play Hellebuyck back to back,
or back to back, which they have done. They have played him back to backers. It helped me a lot in fantasy. When one goalie plays 4 games in a week, it's unreal, especially when it's Hellebuyck. Which, by the way, congratulations on fantasy championship.
Oh, thank you. And congrats to you for a 3rd place victory by a whole 0.2
points. My goodness, did I ever squeeze that out. And you know what I had to do? Who did I pick up? Kevin Shattenkirk. I picked him up. On the last day.
That's ballsy, considering Anaheim, right? You would think, okay, he's probably going to be a minus player. Dude, so there's some deductions.
I think it was the last 6 games he had at least 3 points. So I was like, a few points. I need all the points I can get, and I just dropped anybody that I could. I used up all my spots, just to see if I could squeeze out a few more points. And my goodness, if it weren't for Kevin Shattenkirk. And who was the other? I picked up someone else too. It led me over the edge. Who would have thought? Kevin Shattenkirk, 12.5 points.
Praise be Shattenkirk,
which is awesome. And then I won my other league against a team that was 24-0 headed into that game.
Yeah, that's a bigger tip of the cap for you. I mean,
I was so surprised. People were messaging me. Never ever talk to anybody during the season on this, on the little messaging thing, and then I get messages like, "You got to beat him. You can't let him win." I was like, guys, how? I have never. This guy had scored. He had outscored me almost every single week. I don't think I would have beat him any week of the entire year, and then I scored 20% more points than I had ever scored in a week, and I beat him. And he still scored 250 points more than I had ever scored in a week.
Holy
before
crap.
that. So I mean these most of the weeks were like you score around like 1600, 1700 somewhere in there. 17 something was my highest, and he was always scoring 2,000 points a week. So I was like, I'm done. I can't score that many points, and I somehow got 2,100 points something by the end of the week. So I'll take that. And he was very gracious about the loss. He was like, well, that's just how it goes. He's like, I had the best season I've ever had in fantasy, and I didn't win. So
yeah, the first place guy in our league finished fourth.
He lost to me and you. Yeah. I think. Did he lose to you last week?
He lost to me too. So
that's just
how it goes.
Yeah, and that one was a 14-team league. So to go 24-0 in a 14-team league with that much, like, you're down to these like garbage players, and then lineups were huge. It was a full roster of everything. So it was.
You're picking up Wayne Simmons and crap like that.
Seriously,
league,
so. it was like that. It was like that. Hence why I picked up. The Kevin Shattenkirk was our league, but it was like that. I picked up those types of guys.
I love it.
Okay, well, where are we? Oh,
go to the East, baby.
Let's roll to the East. Yes, I don't know how we got on fantasy. All right, the Eastern Conference at this point is it's 4 games left to go. Nobody's got it. Everyone's played their 78 games. Florida and the Islanders both tied at 87 points, and Pittsburgh at 86 points. Pittsburgh really reeling right now, 4-6 in their last 10. Florida's won 4 in a row, and the New York Islanders have lost 2 straight, but are hanging on by that point. My goodness, the Eastern Conference is tight, and believe it or not, the Florida Panthers are in the best position of these 3 teams.
Yeah, I guess it all depends, right, on if it's me just looking at its strength of schedule. I think Pittsburgh's still doing okay. I think Florida, if you look at their schedule, probably has the toughest schedule out of everybody. They got to play Carolina, Toronto. Pittsburgh, on the one hand, has to play Detroit, Columbus, and Chicago. Like 3 gimmies as far as I'm concerned. So Pittsburgh, to me, has got the best opportunity to seize a playoff spot at this point. If they somehow fumble,
but they are also playing Minnesota.
Right, they are playing Minnesota. Yeah, and I think again, you got 2 teams. Minnesota obviously would prefer to win the division and maybe not have to play Dallas or Colorado in the first round. But, again, Colorado and Dallas probably don't want to have to play each other in the first round either. So there's going to be a lot of battling in that central division there. So Minnesota's not going to be an easy out for anybody, and I don't think Detroit will either. I think Toronto knows that all too well lately.
And there's a good chance here for the Carolina Hurricanes. They're going to be playing the Florida Panthers the last game of the season, and there's a chance that game determines who they play in the first round.
Right.
Sometimes it's that if you win this game, then you are going to actually play this team. If you lose, or whatever it is. So that certainly could happen. That's a little bit of drama there. But
I like Florida just because, again, since Mr. Kachuk's dad came out and said they're soft, man, they've been on a tear. So that's been fun to watch. And again, I would love to just see Florida get in over all 3 of these teams anyways, because with Matthew Tkachuk in the playoffs, Barkov, it just brings another level of excitement to hockey. Again, they might not have the fan base that a Pittsburgh Penguin team might have. And, sometimes it's nice to see that rivalry between the Islanders and Rangers or something like that. But to me, Florida just is a more exciting team at this point. If they can get their goaltending together, man, they would be a fun team to watch in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, and they probably have the most talent up front out of these 3 teams, and definitely the most depth at forward. So, yeah, if they can, it looks like to me, they've won their last 4 games, and their final 3 out of 4 games are at home. That is certainly a benefit. Whereas Pittsburgh's got to play is 2-2, and the New York Islanders have 3 at home as well. So that's the Islanders have a pretty they got to play Tampa Thursday night, but then the Flyers, the Capitals, and the Canadiens to close out the season. That's not necessarily a full on gimme, but as gimme as you can possibly get.
I think Tampa's gonna. I think Tampa, difference from the last few years, I think they're going to kind of ease into the playoffs. They know they're pretty much locked in at that third spot. Yeah. They're not hopping Toronto at this point. So rest up a couple guys because it's going to be a battle that first round. So might as well give your guys a break. And so I think that game can be winnable for the Islanders.
Yeah, and similar for the Panthers, that April 10th game for the Leafs that they'll play them. I'm sure they'll be in the same boat. Somebody's going to be out with a lower body injury or something that they just want to rest up. So that I guess that's the maybe, whereas Pittsburgh's playing these three teams that quote unquote have nothing to lose, maybe that's actually some kryptonite. Detroit's looked pretty good down the stretch. Like even though they haven't, Detroit.
Yeah, they're going to try to play spoiler.
Isn't
what's
good.
going to happen.
But they, I think that Detroit definitely has a chance to play spoiler, and I think they'd love to play spoiler to the Pittsburgh Penguins. There's got to be someone someone going down to them like, yeah, I know none of you guys were here when we played, but like you guys could go out and you could make the Pittsburgh Penguins miss the playoffs for the first time in forever. The Washington Capitals have already missed the playoffs for the first time in 8 years. When is the last time the Penguins missed the playoffs? Crosby's rookie year?
It's been a while, man.
I think so, but we'll pull that up at some point. But so, who do you think is going to make the playoffs here in the East? I guess I should toss this out. The Buffalo Sabres. I'm pretty sure they're out of it. They'd have to win out the last 6 games of the season, which would put them at a very slim 93 points, which would be very difficult to make the playoffs at. That would require what? That would require Pittsburgh. I mean, if they win out, they could make the playoffs. There's a small chance, but I don't think they'll win out anyways.
Yeah, I mean, they win their next 2 games, right? And so now they're up to 85 points. So they're just 2 points out of a playoff spot with 4 games to go with the rest of these teams. So, yeah, there is a chance. But, again, and same with Ottawa and Detroit, too. I think, mathematically those teams are still in it, but, they're not in it.
Also, like the Sabres go and play Carolina, New York Rangers, New Jersey Devils 3 and 4 nights. And then they've got Ottawa, Columbus on a back-to-back as well. So 2 back-to-backs in these last 5 games, and a 3 and 4 nights, and then 4 and 5 nights. They're not winning all 6 of those games. Not a freaking chance.
No.
Not a freaking chance. They're done.
No, I think Carolina, Jersey, the Rangers, they're going hard the rest of the year. I think Tampa and Boston might ease up a little bit, but unless Boston really wants to go after that 63 win mark. But
I mean, shoot, at this point, you have to. You have to go after that. It's crazy. They're already at 60 wins with 5 games left to go. Unbelievable.
That is something to be said.
We're probably about to see history be made, which is pretty cool.
For a team that myself and a lot of other people were like, this is going to be a bubble team this year. They've just completely given everybody the middle finger. Yep, just destroyed. Oh, McAvoy's out all for the first couple months. Marchand's out. Yeah, I mean, I'll say the Bruins do have to play the Leafs and the Devils, but last 3 games of the season, Philadelphia, Washington, Montreal. 61, 62, 63. And should be it.
Shoot, they might shatter this record. This record might be 64, 65 wins.
That would be crazy. But you know what? I would love to see more than anything else is them to go play for the record against Montreal on the road, and Montreal just ruin it for them.
Ooh.
Like, just if there's anything that can salvage this Canadian season, to be like, we can tip our cap to this year, and
it's in Montreal that game. Yeah.
Yes, it is, which would make it even more fun for me.
All right. I'm sorry. Did you say the teams that you thought were going to make it?
No. Yeah. So I was going to say, to answer your question, I've got Florida getting in at this point. I think they're almost a lock the way they're playing right now. I think if just looking again at schedules too, I think they'll do all right. And then for me, I'm going to go New York Islanders. I think right now, just watching both these teams play. And then I think part of it, too, is me wanting to play devil's advocate because I want to see Tristan Jarry not make the playoffs, contemplate not returning next year, and shake up the goaltending market this offseason. And just
I think he's gone anyways.
Yeah,
I mean, honestly, he's why they're missing the playoffs.
Well, I mean, I'm probably 60-40 on him being gone right now at this point, but because again, there's not really much of an upgrade outside in the free agent market this season. But again, I would love to see a playoff year where we don't have Pittsburgh or Washington in it and see what happens.
Okay, yeah, that would be the first time in a very long time that neither of those teams make the playoffs. Probably since that Crosby rookie season would be my guess. I don't think that Washington made the playoffs the first year Ovechkin was there either.
No.
Yeah, it's hard to see it's weird, like not picking the Penguins to go in and make the playoffs. I'm wondering if they've just lost that steam. Like they just don't have the depth right now to be able to stick with it and to win this out and make the playoffs. I'm looking at their schedule the rest of the way. They do have an easier 3 games. But I think there's a lot of pride from like, hey, this Pittsburgh team has been good for a long time. Let's see if we can be a part of them missing the playoffs. Like, if that's what you have to play for. But I also think there's a ton of pride on that Penguins team. I could see them winning out all 4 of these last few games, but at the same time, don't you say I would have seen this team the last 10 games playing a lot better than a 4-6 record. I know that the goaltending hasn't been there, but that's probably what kind of seals the deal for me is their goaltending has been pretty bad. Islanders have the best goaltending out of those 3 teams, so I'm definitely going Islanders, and Florida's just been too hot right now. So, yeah, I think the Penguins are done, which is crazy. I think even last week we were talking like, oh, the Penguins will be in the playoffs, and they've just dumped the bed since then.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, I would like to see Buffalo get in. That would be the best. If they win the last 6 games and everyone else just kind of beats up on each other and loses to these teams that they should beat, and Buffalo sneaks in last game of the season.
How exciting would that be?
I would not be mad about it. It absolutely will not happen, and my guess is that that it's a foregone conclusion within probably 3 days is how long it'll take, because I don't think they're going to beat Carolina or the Rangers there. So, okay, so we have our top 5 most likely coaches to to get fired. Sorry, I guess they could make the playoffs, but I think probably most of these guys are teams that have missed the playoffs, but certainly there are teams with high expectations where if things don't go well, the writing's on the wall as well. So I think what we'll do here, Justin, is we're just going to get the obvious one out of the way as a, like, if X happens, this will happen and this coach will get fired. If the Leafs lose in round 1, Sheldon Keefe will be fired. And he will be the next coach to be fired.
Yeah, to be quite honest, I didn't even put him on my top 5 list just because I already assumed that's just, it's written in stone, right? So there's the whole point of these, I mean, for me anyways, is to speculate, right? The whole point of these lists.
Oh my gosh, so you're saying that it's written in stone that the Leafs are going to lose in the first round?
No, it's written in stone. If they lose in the first round, he's gone.
Okay, I see.
Now, again, whether or not I think they're going to lose in the first round, that's up for debate.
Well, the fact that he's not on your list tells me that you're picking the Leafs to beat the Lightning. So,
well, we'll see once we get to our playoff previews, won't we?
Yep. Yes, we will. The Lightning Leafs. My goodness, what a series that's going to be. Okay. Well, so you don't have Toronto. Well, then I guess we're just putting them on the, like, as far we don't have a just missed for this list. It's too small, but we'll just put an asterisk next to them as, like, this will automatically Keefe moves to number 1 if they lose in round 1.
Without a doubt.
Okay. Then let's hear who is. Did you have these in a particular order, or did you just have 5 coaches?
I did. I put it in order. Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Same. Okay. Well, let's go with your number 5.
All right, number 5. I've got Brad Larson from the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Yeah. I have him. I have him as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's too hard to, you bring in talent like Johnny Gaudreau and to finish even worse than you did last year, adding the talent you did, guys like Kent Johnson getting a little bit better. I mean, again, the goaltending just looked just terrible this season. Defense was meh all year. And don't get me wrong, injuries played a part in that a little bit. But again, they looked lost out there most nights. They just looked like they just didn't know where to skate on the ice. And so to me, that kind of, I guess I don't know if you want to call it mindlessness, just falls right back into coaching, in my opinion, right? I mean, you look at other teams that are towards the bottom of the league, at least like I look at a team like Philadelphia, right? They may not look good on the ice as far as like being able to produce, but at least they look like they're one cohesive unit, they have one direction in mind. They know what they're doing. It's just not executing.
And honestly, Philadelphia is supposed to be bad, right? Like we knew that they were going to be bad, and here they are being bad. Columbus was supposed to be better. Yeah. And let's talk the minus 102 goal differential as well. Just shows that they've just been torched, especially recently since they got rid of their goalie, but which never helps anybody. I know Brad Larson was only hired last year, June. Well, I guess 2 years ago now, but like for last season. I suppose I can see a scenario where he's got 1 year left on his deal, and you head into next season with Brad Larson as your head coach. If you feel comfortable with him. I mean, he was the assistant coach before being hired as the head coach. So he's been a part of this team since 2014. So, I mean, maybe there's a scenario where, all right, you're going to come back for 1 more year. We're going to see what draft pick we end up with. And I think some of this is, do you want Brad Larson to be the one who's going to develop whoever your top draft pick is? Because that's going to be a huge thing, because Columbus will likely get one of the top 3 picks. Mm-hmm. So that would be the question. And I wonder though, because Jarmo Kekalainen, he did hire him, and it was only really less than 2 years ago that he hired him. I think there's a chance that he comes back, and that if there's any bad start to the season, that they fire him. But man, it just seems like they need a new direction from the head coaching position. It's just also a matter of like who's out there who wants to go and coach in Columbus.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can tell you, I'm sure with a talent like Johnny Gaudreau, they'll probably find a coach real quick.
That's true. Well, and if Connor Bedard ends up going there, then then we'll just forget the whole conversation. I actually have the Washington Capitals as my number 5. The Columbus Blue Jackets are my number 4. Based on how this season went, and it was not supposed to go like this. They were supposed to be a playoff contender. They go out and they get the most expensive goalie on the market, and that's got to be the GM's going, I mean, I gave you a much better goalie than what we had last year, and that it worked out to some degree. I guess he was okay at times, but at a .910 save percentage over the course of 53 games, you can't necessarily complain about the way that Kemper's played. There's been a lot of injuries, but you just kind of look at this like, well, Kuznetsov, I mean, that whole deal, that's kind of been a disaster since Laviolette took over there, and Anthony Mantha has not looked as good since going to Washington. I just wonder if it's time that Peter Laviolette, apparently the contract negotiations aren't going well either. So maybe it's just time to go, you know what? We don't have to do this anymore. Like, we can just let this contract go out. We can bring in somebody different, and maybe you look at taking a different direction and you go, yeah, we want to get Ovechkin the record. We want to be competitive, but we need a new voice in the locker room. And maybe that's the direction they go. Yeah,
I like that. I mean, they're number 4 on my list for a reason, and I think
they're number 4. Okay.
Yeah, you probably, said most of it right there. I mean, you just look at the talent on paper and what they've been able to do, and so I'll be curious next year, especially because I suspect there's going to be not necessarily a big shakeup, but you bring in a guy like Rasmus Sandin, you have an extension coming to Dylan Strome, and rumors of Kuznetsov possibly being dealt. So I'm interested to see if there's any shakeups on this roster, and then to see again bringing in a new system to try to maximize the talent they have in these last few short years of Ovechkin's career. Might not be a bad idea at this point versus waiting till the last year or 2 of his deal.
Very true. Yep. You want to, I think based on the way that he played and how much longer he needs to play, you still have like a decent window with probably him being pretty good still, and people wanting to come there and play. Like maybe you can attract some more, so like other Russian players coming in. I know that's a taboo word right now, but I feel like you've got to see if you can. Maybe this small step backwards this year can ultimately help them to be a better team in 2 or 3 years, and he can still go get his record. And then towards the end of his career, maybe they can compete for a Stanley Cup again if they just pull back a little bit here and maybe bring in a new voice and try some new things. The next coach that I have at my number 3 is the Anaheim Ducks.
Oh, okay. They're on my list too.
I figured. Yeah, I have them. I have them where the Anaheim Ducks are terrible, and it just has not worked out for Dallas Eakins. Almost everywhere he goes, it just seems to not really work out. I know he was, with the Edmonton Oilers for like a year early on, and then his contract is up at the end of the year. So I guess technically he wouldn't be fired, but I can't see him being back. Pat Verbeek will definitely let him go and bring in his own guy for sure.
Yeah. There's no doubt about that. I mean, like I said, they're number one on my list. I'm just going to say it right now. Because again, I think for a team that's played so bad statistically as far as goals against, and you have, in my opinion, still a top 10 goaltender, Jonathan Gibson, and the roster they have good pieces to be better than this. But again, similar to Columbus, it just doesn't look like they're playing as a unit, and they're just out there just skating in circles to see what happens. And so I think they need a more disciplined head coach in there, especially with a lot of these younger guys. Maybe somebody, again, who's disciplined, but still is almost a player's coach to come in, and there's really nobody on the top of my mind. Maybe this could be a good reclamation project for a guy like Coach Q. I've heard he's been looking to come back, and this could be a
and
nice
you could
landing
kind of
spot.
hide out. Like, I mean, he obviously went to Florida because some of it was like, I don't want to be in Chicago. Like, I don't want to be on a team where it's going to be very, very intense. Going to Florida, there's a little bit less pressure, and I feel like it's the same in Anaheim.
Yeah, absolutely. And the market there too isn't going to be like a Chicago or New York where the media is going to constantly be on him. And for a lot of, casual fans too, they're not watching those games because it's on the West Coast. So, they probably won't get a lot of those ESPN games, nationally televised kind of stuff. So we'll see how it goes.
Okay. Who's your next team? Who's your number? Well, I guess who's your number 3? Yeah, because I'm guessing Anaheim's your number 1.
They are my number 1.
Okay.
My number 3 is the Nashville Predators with John Hines.
Yep.
I think we, mentioned it in one of our previous shows, with a new GM coming in, and,
yep.
We know who that is. It's clear that he's going to want to bring in his own guy, I think. And especially if Nashville misses the playoffs this season, it's even more fuel to the fire to say, it's time to make a change at the head coach.
Yeah, and he does have one more year left on this deal. He signed an extension in 2022, so he's got one more year left. Not hard to kind of bury, just let him go. I think this one's my number 1. I think that he's gone. I just can't see it. I can't see a reason to keep him around. I mean, he's been their head coach for since 2019 was his first year with the Predators. And I mean, he's been okay, but they haven't done anything. There hasn't, I mean, other than Yossi having a couple career years, there hasn't been a huge anything where you go, wow, he's just done such a good job. We have to keep him. There's been we have to keep him. So
yeah, I think Yossi's that type of talent. He would have had those years no matter who was behind that bench.
I would agree. With that. And certainly his system, because of the way that they forecheck and because of the speed that they use, certainly it helped Yossi. But yeah, Yossi's good enough to where he would still put up big numbers, and he's incredible. That's a tool for a coach, not the other way around. Not the coach isn't the tool for the player. So yeah, I think John Hines, he's my number 1. So he's okay. He's out of there. So who's your number 2? Let's see if we have something different here.
Okay, yeah. My number 2 is Craig Berube from the St. Louis Blues.
Okay, I thought about Craig Berube. Yeah, I thought about Craig Berube. Why did you end up including him on your list?
Well, I think, given, again, we've seen recently with guys like Jordan Kyrou arguing with the head coach on the bench, right? It's clear, according to multiple reports, that there's just a lot of friction between the players and the head coaching staff there in St. Louis. And so I looked at this roster a little bit more, and, they've clearly underperformed this year, right? They dealt a lot of pieces off at the deadline. They bring in, another guy like Jacob Verana, who I think can be, a good piece for them next year. But given the contracts they have for guys like Falk, Shin, Parenko, right, they're not going to go through a full rebuild. So I think if there's a time to make a head coaching change, it's now, because you want to come in with a fresh voice while you have all these guys under contract and try to make a move as quick as possible to get these guys performing at another level. That way, again, because if for some reason, say, they just clearly don't perform well, then you know where your deficiencies are, right? It's more easily identifiable that really we need to shake up this roster, right?
All right.
And
here's why this isn't going to happen.
Please.
$7 million. That's how much they'll be paying him to not coach the St. Louis Blues.
Yeah, well, but it's only 3.5 per season. So
$7 million.
But yes, it is. It's tough, right? But I think St. Louis is so close to being removed from that Stanley Cup, win, that they're still.
Yes, he coached them to it.
He did, absolutely, and I think he did a phenomenal job. But I think at some point, similar to some coaches we've seen in the past, that again they've done a phenomenal job. But just like when they said they got rid of Barry Trotz in New York because he just lost the room, right? Whether or not that's true or not is a whole other issue. But again, I just think Berube's kind of lost the room a little bit. He's kind of losing the respect of a lot of these players, and especially when you want to transition into younger guys like Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou, you want to bring in a guy that's their coach, that they're going to respect over the next 5-6 years of their deals to be able to make this thing work and hopefully turn it around pretty quick. Okay.
It wouldn't shock me if he was fired, certainly. I think this little run here at the end of the season may hold off. And also the $7 million is probably going to be a big reason to just go, well, let's hold off here. Let's come back next year. Let's come back fresh. Let's exit interviews, give players all the runway they want to voice their thoughts, their opinions, and we're all going to meet together, the core of this team, and go like, hey, he's our coach. You guys are here. Like, what do we need to do different? Let's make some changes. Everybody gets to take a breath. This has been a really hard season in St. Louis. And I can see how being coached by a guy like Berube when you're losing sucks. But when you're winning, it's great, right? Like, winning just cures everything. So
right.
I think they may be more so, hey, $7 million, especially to a team like St. Louis. Yes, they'll spend money, but they're not one of the richest teams in the league. I could see that $7 million being like, can we bring them back for one more year and see if this can work? Because if next year they come back and make the playoffs and take a step, then okay, then we can talk about that, and we can maybe salvage something with the coaching staff. I don't know if this is necessarily a coaching issue, more so as it has been. Just they have no defense. Their defense is. It's not that they don't have talent back there, but it's just that it's not the right type of talent meshed together. And that's not right on Berube. That's on the general manager. So I think that the GM, if he fires Berube, then it's kind of like, hey, I didn't make the right moves. Like, you could easily say, you didn't make the right moves for this guy. You also locked up Jordan Binnington forever on a terrible deal, and he's been awful. That's not on Berube either.
Well, in retrospect, I will say the Binnington deal looked good at the time because he's just coming off that Stanley Cup win as a rookie.
It's a Cam Ward deal all over again.
It absolutely is. And I will say, from a GM standpoint, you could say, hey, you know what? I have the right guys in place. You're just not coaching them well enough to play good, right, or to play well. So,
yeah, but he also had the right, quote unquote, he had the certain guys in place, and he had to fire his coach and bring in a new one, and then that coach was able to coach those guys. I think he's safe because of the amount left on his deal. I think he's safe.
Okay.
That's why my number 2 is DJ Smith.
DJ Smith.
Who also has 2 years left on his deal.
Yep.
So I will concede that I'm a hypocrite.
Well, I will say,
but I don't think he's getting paid $3.5 million.
Pitcher.
Yeah, I think he's probably making $1 million a year.
Yeah, probably not that much.
And
You're right
the final
that.
year. Oh, sorry. And the final year of the deal is a team option. So really, they own for one more year. So let's say it's about $1 million, somewhere in there, 750 something. So DJ Smith, to me, in Ottawa, this is his fourth year there. They've missed the playoffs every single year. And yeah, I get maybe they look a little bit better right now. Like they're at 81 points and they've got a nice home record. It just doesn't seem like he's really taken, some of these younger guys. Yeah, they're playing better. Like they've got some identity, I suppose, but they can't seem to get off to a good start. So that's the thing that would worry me the most. They've never gotten off to a good start, and you don't want to say, well, let's see how they start. Because if history's telling you anything, they aren't going to get off to a good start, and you're going to end up firing them anyways. So DJ Smith, thank you for trying. He's certainly a good person. Like guys love playing for him. But I think he just has not done enough. It's very similar to other guys on this list. Like you just have not done enough to, like John Hines. Yeah, you've been fine. But you have not done enough to continue on coaching for a fifth year, especially when you've got 1 year left on your deal. But we know that it'll be cheap. And my final reason, they will have new ownership, and new ownership will likely want a new coach.
Yeah, it's clear, right? If they bring in new ownership and they, fire the general manager, right? And just
I don't think that he'll be fired.
You don't think so?
Don't. No, I don't. I think he's done a really good job, actually, given the set of circumstances. And my guess is that he has been in conversation with all these different ownership groups too.
Right. Well, no, absolutely. I think, again, if you're somebody looking to buy the team, you want to meet with management, right? You want to see what they're about, what their game plan is for the future, because you don't want to go in there and, immediately show up at the draft and then start selling off pieces like Alex DeBrincat gets traded.
Right.
They somehow magically decide to trade, Drake Batherson, and, we're going to also deal Brady Tkachuk because we just want to retool, right? So, yeah, you wouldn't obviously go buy a team if you know they're about to sell everything off and totally tank this team.
Pierre Dorion is the Ottawa Senators. I mean, he's been there since 2007.
Well, I'll give you this. I think he's done a phenomenal job the last couple of years, given, again, that ownership to me is penny pinching, right?
Right.
Now, to me, the offseason is going to be very key for this team, because if you go in and say you can't re-sign Alex DeBrincat, maybe you can't get the right deal for Shane Pinto, or maybe you overpay for him. Again, maybe now at this point you're like, well, shoot, now.
Man, you just look at the deals that this guy signed. Drake Batherson to less than $5 million for 6 years for Drake Batherson, and going and signing Claude Giroux, that Mark Stone trade, that signing Josh Norris and Shabbat, all the Brady Tkachuk's deal, Tim Stutzle's deal. I mean, all these deals are under market value. They've all been great. I mean, Tim Stutzle at 84 points right now, almost 40 goals, and he's making it 8-3 for the next 8 years.
Yeah, I absolutely will tip my cap to Pierre Dorion. I think he's done a phenomenal job getting the right deals in place and bringing in the right talent. So I'm with you. I don't think he gets canned at any point. I think new ownership would definitely love to keep him around. But to me, the only reason I would say is I don't think that DJ Smith might not get fired is one, they're playing much better hockey than they were last year. I think even though they're only 10 points ahead of where they were last year, I think they're significantly improved as far as play goes. And again, that goes back to making moves for guys like Claude Giroux and DeBrincat. But I just want to see another year, right?
Yeah, but isn't that the reason that they're doing better is just because they have some better players? But he hasn't really been able to, look at what Seattle's done in one season. I think they set the record for the most points, most improved ever.
Yeah, it might be, but I want to see a full season, with these guys playing at their top of their game, and I think he can. I think DJ Smith, because he's so beloved by the players, he can still take this team to another level. Now, again, I think early on, if they have, like we mentioned, a poor start like they typically do, then I think there's a short leash. They're going to pull the trigger pretty quick on him. But, again, that's assuming that you have somebody waiting in the wings, right? Because that's always got to be the plan. You have to know who your guy's going to be that's going to come up and fill in. Because if, for instance, maybe they're eyeing a guy like Coach Q or maybe somebody else to come in, ideally, right, and he gets swooped up in the offseason because you just were a little hesitant, I wouldn't want to do that either. So, if there's a guy out there that I think that if ownership thinks he can be the guy to take this team to the next level, then yes, you pull the trigger, you fire DJ Smith and bring in your guy.
Yeah, also, I guess the other thing to consider, I know that it's a likely long shot because right now Ottawa sits 21st. That's likely probably about where they'll fall. So you're talking like 12th overall pick without winning the lottery. Even if they win the lottery, I think you can only move up. What is it? Is it
10 spots?
10 spots now? So they can move up to the second overall. Still unlikely for them to win the lottery, but the off chance of them winning the lottery, that also could change some things too. But I just don't see a reason to bring DJ Smith back. But you may be right. Maybe maybe they do give him another chance. I just think he has not had a good start in the 4 years that he's been there. He has a better team, and they barely improved.
Well, here's the thing, too. They don't even have their first-round pick this season. They don't even have their first 3 rounds of picks this season. So they're going to have to make do with what they've got. So they better hope they don't win the lottery.
That was the Jacob Chikrin deal, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, it is top 5 protected.
Sure.
So if they happen to win the lottery, then they would keep the pick.
Right, and it goes to the next round. So, but should be interesting.
Should be interesting. All right. Well, let's just spend the last couple minutes of the show talking about this overtime proposal, adding 2 extra minutes to the 5-on-5 3-on-3 the 5-minute 3-on-3 overtime, moving it up to 7 minutes. Basically, in an attempt to avoid the shootout, is the vibe that I get from it.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me. And, personally, I think, I mean, if you're just going to get rid of the shootout, what I would rather see happen is instead of adding time, because to me, the 3-on-3 overtime has become kind of mundane now. What ended up happening is guys just usually skate around in circles, waiting for a 2-on-1 or an odd man rush to go the other way. And then it just goes back and forth for a few minutes until somebody finally scores. And it's kind of, I don't want to say boring. It's become
overcoached. That's the problem. Like, do you remember when the first year that 3-on-3 overtime was there, how hilariously fun it was because it was like breakaway, 2-on-1, breakaway. It was just back and forth, crazy action. And now it's like, we can't get possession. Let's just pass it back to the goalie. It's become like soccer in a way. Let's just pass it back to the goalie.
Right. And I mean, honestly, I get more enjoyment out of the shootout now than I have out of the 3-on-3, if I'm being honest.
But is that because you see it less? And it's like a little bit more like
maybe.
It's gotten back to the novelty of a shootout as opposed to I'll never forget one night. I think there were like 6 or 7 games out of 9 or 10 that ended in a shootout. I remember being like, this is just dumb. Like, I don't like the shootout that much, but it's fun when it happens, once every 15 games that I see, as opposed to once every 3 games.
I just love the creativity that we get from some of these players, like Kuznetsov when he came down moving at literally 20 feet a minute, like the guy was barely going down the ice. That was fun for me to watch.
Yes. And people they're talking about changing the rule that you it should have a shot clock or something like that in the shootout because it's cheap how slow he goes. So I was like, what are you talking about? It's awesome.
It is awesome. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they took away the spinorama, which I was pissed off about too. So, don't take away anything else if you're going to leave the shootout in there. But to me, I think, so I can't remember who it was that suggested it, but somebody suggested we do every couple minutes, we go from 4-on-4 to 3-on-3 to 2-on-2 to 1-on-1. To eliminate the shootout. And I can't imagine 1-on-1 what that's going to look like, but that would be, I mean, I would probably find that more interesting, at least, to start. than doing 7 minutes.
Yeah, give me 4 minutes of 4-on-4 and like 3 minutes of 3-on-3, and then go to a shootout or something. But I think the point is that it ends in some sort of actual hockey way. I guess, yeah.
Let's go 1-on-1, baby. Let's see a couple minutes of that, right?
There you go.
I mean, how fun would it be to watch like Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews go head to head on the ice, right? I mean, just to see who scores first.
Yeah,
or let's go street rules and put a couple trash cans on the ice and play 2-on-2 and just see what happens.
Who could score between the trash cans?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just something different than 3-on-3s.
I think that my guess is that there'll be some. Okay, here on the one end, shootout goals don't count towards your stats, but overtime goals do. So could there
that pisses me off so bad.
Could there be this thought in some players' minds, like, hey, that's an extra potentially 2 minutes that we're going to play. So each year, you got to go look like how many of these games go to a shootout, or how likely would it be that somebody scores in that 2 minutes, the 2 minutes extra. So let's say like, I guess if every minute adds on an extra like maybe 20% that it's going to end, then if that's like, we'll just say like 30% fewer games go to OT. I don't know what it is in the ECHL. I know they're trying this in the ECHL. So you have to look at your percentages that these games are going to still end in that final 2 minutes. And if maybe over the course of the season, that's an extra like 4 goals per team that you maybe have the opportunity to score, and that's a goal or two for you if you can score in that overtime. I don't know if that makes any difference to a player. Like, I actually get these goals counted towards my statistics or these points. Maybe it's an extra few points, but you certainly, it's gonna amount to a few more points on the score sheet. So there's that. I don't know if I'm not opposed to the increase in time, but I kind of agree. Like, now we're going to go 7 minutes. That feels like a long time to watch 3-on-3. I would not be opposed to, like, let's play 4-on-4 for 5 minutes, and then let's play 3-on-3 for 5 minutes. Like, I would rather something like that, but I don't think.
What about this? What if we did like a college football type scenario, right, where they start at the 25, right? But this way we do it. We start off. Each team gets a 2-minute power play, right? If you can't decide, you get a 4-on-3 power play, and then you just keep exchanging power plays, and then you go from 4-on-3 to 3-on-2 to 2-on-1 to see who scores.
Or okay, what if you go, okay, you're 3-on-3. At the end of that 5 minutes, the home team, another player can pop out at that 5-minute point, and then you play 4-on-3 for the remainder of that overtime. You just get a power play. Well, no, somebody has to. You go similar. Power play, then you'd have to trade who can come off, I guess, and then the next team gets a guy. Yeah, I think you're just going to go 3-on-3 for 7 minutes in an attempt to. I wonder, like, do players just not like the shootout anymore? That would be the question. If players would, because as far as I know, players are excited, like they were open to this. So I wonder, if players are just kind of thinking like, well, we don't really like the shootout that much anyway. So what's another 2 minutes if it decides the game? Do we see this next season?
No, we'll see it in the AHL first before we see it in the NHL. Yeah, for sure.
That's fair. I mean, it has been going in the ECHL, but yeah, probably an extra year in the AHL. Maybe even when does the deal end with the NHLPA? I think we've got another 3 years, right?
Something like that.
Let's see. When does it expire? It expires on 2026. So the 25-26 season is when it ends. So there you go. All right. Connor McDavid. We wanted to talk some Connor McDavid because he's ridiculous. Will he get 70 goals?
Ooh, that's a good question. Will he? I mean, I will say,
he's at 62. I don't think.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt he's going to get 150 points, but 70 goals, I'm going to say no.
Yeah, 147 points right now with 5 games left to go, or 4 games left to go. Yeah, he's definitely going to get his 150 points, but yeah, 8 goals in the next 4 games. That's going to be a stretch. Although the Oilers have been so hot, 9-0-1 in their last 10, won their last 5 games. They have 309 goals. they are just scoring the lights out of teams. Maybe the Western the favorite Western Conference team to come out of there because they have just been playing so well.
Yeah, the next closest team in the West is Seattle, and they're a solid 30 goals on top of them. So that's
37 goals below.
Yeah, it's crazy. The thing I'm more curious about with Connor McDavid, obviously, right? The question mark is besides Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux, the next most point totals in a season was 155 by Steve Yzerman. So I'm curious if he passes Yzerman, right? That would be just a nice feat, a nice little tip of the cap to have in your cap for sure.
Shoot, I didn't realize Steve Yzerman has the 3rd most points out of like an individual player, not an individual season, but an individual player. Because Gretzky had over 155 points a lot of times.
Right.
Over 200 points 4 times, I think. 215, 212, 208, and 205, I want to say it is. And then Lemieux had 199 in the season. I'm not sure what they are after that. But
I wish he would have got 200.
Points, 8 points in the next 4 games is what he'd need, which honestly is basically what he's tracking at. He's at almost 2 points a game. So it's very, very possible. It'll be fun to see what he can do. Breaking records, man. This kid is just unbelievable. He's not really a kid anymore.
No.
He's a man.
He is a man's man.
Is he a man? He's 26 years old. Is he a man yet? He's still kind of.
We'll see what kind of beard he gets in the playoffs, and I'll let you know if he's
okay. That's very fair. Yeah, let's see what kind of beard McDavid gets.
Don't have the Jonathan Taves beard where it's just super patchy and no mustache. Like, bro,
can't do it. All right. Well, there's our show. By the way. Sorry. Before we jet, Erik Karlsson getting 100 points. Will it happen? He needs 4 more points in the final 5 games.
I hope so. I would love it personally, just because.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, I love it when you can get a defenseman to get 100 points. I mean, how rare is that, right? So
does he win the Norris?
Oh yeah, I think especially if he hits 100 points, there's no doubt, because all the other defensemen have not. I mean, the point totals aren't really even close, and then not only that too, but I think what he's doing on a terrible San Jose team and only a -15. He'll be the first. Yeah, I think he'll be the first player since Nicholas Lindstrom did it. I think Lindstrom was like a -2, but to be a minus player and win the Norris.
All right. Yeah. I mean, what can you do when your team's terrible?
Right.
But you're putting up big points. Well, okay, there's our show. Find us on Twitter at OT Hockey Talk. Enjoy the hockey this week, and we'll be back next week to talk more, probably some playoff previews at this point, because I think for the most part we'll know we can do some of the series before it's all decided on the bottom end. But likely those divisional playoffs here. The series will be decided on who's playing, and we can preview some of those on our next show and then finish them up before the playoffs start once we know the rest of them. So stay tuned for that, and don't forget to subscribe to the show. Justin, you have a great rest of your night.
You too.
Thank you. Talk to you guys soon.